to carry the overall total of 40 to 50,000 men with their vehicles and equipment. An armada of over 4,000 landing ships, landing craft, and barges of varying types was required. Only about half of these were capable of crossing the channel under their own power, the remainder having either to be towed or carried aboard the larger ships. When it is remembered that every man and every vehicle had to be allotted to a specific ship or landing craft, that every vehicle before embarkation had to be waterproofed, that men and vehicles had to arrive at the right time at the hearts at which their particular landing craft was beached, the complications of planning and organization can easily be imagined. Only when all this had been done did the huge task of the Royal Navy in assembling, marshalling, and shepherding this heterogeneous collection of vessels across the channel into paths swept through the enemy minefields, in landing them on the correct beaches, and providing the necessary fire support begin. Apart from the non-combatant ships and landing craft carrying men, vehicles, and stores, the U.S. Navy and Royal Navy assembled for the escort and support of the operation a fleet of over 1,500 vessels, ranging from battleships to armed landing craft. They were divided into two task forces, the Western Task Force from the U.S. Navy supporting the U.S. landing, and the Eastern Task Force, provided primarily by the Royal Navy, supporting the British-Canadian landing. Each task force was further subdivided into forces, one to each beach, responsible for escorting the assaulting force concerned, positioning it correctly, and providing fire support for the landing. The assault looked primarily to naval gunfire to silence the German coastal batteries and strongpoints. The magnitude of the naval effort can be judged by the fact that the forces included 7 battleships, 23 cruisers, 148 destroyers, as well as a swarm of smaller vessels, sloops, frigates, trawlers, corvettes, patrol craft and minesweepers. In addition, a fleet of 350 specially designed landing craft carrying guns, rockets, anti-aircraft guns, and machine guns was assembled for the close support of the actual assault. The air effort in direct support of the assault was on a similar immense scale. It comprised the most modern types of aircraft available at the period, primarily the Spitfire, Mustang, Typhoon, Lightning, and Thunderbolt. The exact timing of the assault proved a most complex problem which had its repercussions upon the dates on which the operation could be launched. Although from the point of view of the assaulting troops there was much to be said for an assault in darkness, both the navies and air forces had to have daylight to carry out their bombardment tasks, and darkness would dangerously increase the likelihood of troops being landed in the wrong place. To assist navigation and for the airborne landings, moonlight was essential. Finally, the German underwater beach obstacles meant that landing must begin 3 to 4 hours before high tide. The only suitable periods for the operation therefore were those when there was 4 to 5 hours daylight between dawn and high tide and at the same time good moonlight was available. All these conditions could only be satisfied on approximately 3 days in each lunar month. However powerful and successful the assault, it would clearly be valueless unless the forces ashore could be built up more rapidly than those of the enemy and properly maintained when there. This involved 3 problems: the planning, escorting, and routing of the follow-up convoys, ensuring that those convoys contained the right personnel, vehicles, and equipment arriving in the right order, and finally ensuring that they could be rapidly unloaded on arrival. 15 personnel ships, 74 ocean-going merchant ships, and more than 200 coasters were loaded before D-Day, and these were to form the first wave of the build-up. The requirement thereafter was for 8 convoys a day. Once having got the assault force across, movement of these convoys was not likely to present any particular problem for the Allied navies. The question of what they should contain after the initial pre-planned flight was more difficult, and a special organization known as Build-Up Control Organization, BUCO, was set up in Southampton to ensure that what was shipped across the channel was geared to the requirements of the battle. The question of rapid unloading initially appeared the most difficult of all. It could clearly not be done across the beaches as a long-term measure, and the likelihood of capturing port facilities intact appeared small, at any rate in the early stages. So the balance sheet of this immense operation shows the following staggering figures: 50,000 men in the assault drawn from 5 divisions, over 2 million men to be shipped to France overall, comprising a total of 39 divisions, 138 major warships used in the assault, together with 221 smaller combat vessels, over 1,000 minesweepers and auxiliary vessels, 4,000 landing ships or craft, 805 merchant ships, 59 blockships, 300 miscellaneous small craft, 11,000 aircraft, including fighters, bombers, transports, and gliders. With such a weight of numbers and material, it might well be thought that the assault would be practically irresistible, but two factors must be remembered. First, the hazards and extreme complexity of an amphibious operation of this magnitude, for which there was no precedent. All the most meticulous arrangements could be upset and the utmost confusion caused by some chance occurrence or unpredicted change in the weather. Second, the great inherent superiority of the defense over the attack in an amphibious operation, especially against prepared coastal defenses. However great the Allied superiority, there could be no certainty that the force would succeed even in securing a foothold. Surprise and deception were the essence of the operation, and complete surprise there could not be, for the Germans knew that the invasion was coming. All they did not know was when and where. Finally, it was clear to both sides that this was the decisive operation of the war. If the landing succeeded, Germany must eventually be crushed sooner or later between the advancing forces of the Russians and the Allies. Should the landing fail, the Allies might well take years to recover from their losses in men, material, and morale. The peoples of occupied Europe would give up hope and Germany would be left free to turn and square the account with the Russians.